So I had the pleasure in the pre-conference of speaking about our research team's efforts in modeling this illness, so a very complex and at this point we think rather successful modeling method. But I thought for this second conference I'd just switch it up and talk about something else. And recognizing that we are a mixed audience of advocates and clinicians and researchers, I thought that this would be kind of an interesting topic. I hope I picked well. We'll see how it goes. So I come from this very large group in South Florida. We all left our various and sundry universities about 5 years ago and gathered under a new university roof to try to create an interdisciplinary team that would be able to approach this problem in a big picture kind of way by understanding the various elements and then pulling it together into modeling. One of the elements we were missing all along was a really good understanding of genetic risk. And there's a reason for genetic risk being missing in our big picture. It's an incredibly expensive undertaking to do large group GWAS, which is a big gene surveys or gene mutation surveys. And in general, you need really big numbers. The smallest number of subjects that ever showed something meaningful that changed the way we perceived a disease was in macular degeneration, and the number was 750. And everyone gasped because that's a really low number in gene studies. And if you take an example like diabetes, they had to get up to the number of around 30,000 subjects before you could say something meaningful. And we're really basically guessing how many we need. It's somewhere between, at the low end, 750, highly unlikely in a complex illness like this illness, that you would have a single mutation that drove the whole problem. So it's much more likely to be at that higher end of complicated heterogeneous illnesses like diabetes. So there are some significant barriers to getting there. One is, how do you get 30,000 patients to participate in a study? How do you fund a study that's got 30,000 patients in it? And how do you fund a study whose methodology that's required to get there, while the prices come down nicely, while we've been mulling about this the last 10 years, it's still out of reach for the usual caps that we work under in our research efforts. So I'm just so proud of the people I work with, I can't tell you. You can throw them problems and they don't say, well, then we'll skip over that one. They say, well, let's approach it. So I'm going to just tell you this story, and I love this story. I'm very, very proud of this story. So let's just start with our group. We have like I say, a big group. We're 62 people. We're dedicated to the study of chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalomyelitis, and Gulf War illness, a related condition. Seriously, 62 people whose full-time job is doing this. We're not distracted by other things. So that's exciting. The fact that we cross a lot of disciplines is exciting. Dr. Marianne Fletcher, who asked that interesting question at the end, is our lead immunologist. You'll know her. She's one of the most well-known biomarker discovery people in our field. Lubov Nathanson, who's somewhere there, she's way in the back, is our lead genomics expert. And we have this fabulous team. This is just one of our early pictures, but I've circled these two faces. These are two medical students who hang out with us, and they keep coming back. And so in this picture, we'd just gotten there, and they were just doing an elective with us. The next summer, they took advantage of the Blue Ribbon Fellowship that was organized by advocacy organizations and spent the summer with us. So, and they developed this project. So the lead then is a medical student, Kelly Hilton, who's currently between her second and third year. And her colleague, Christina, who's a bioinformatics master's degree before she went to medical school, very helpful in the design of this study. They got together and they just addressed these questions with with obviously a lot of mentorship from our group. So I'm not going to go over what ME/CFS is, but hey, you know it's lousy, and it causes a lot of disability, and you're really, really sick, and we still are even grasping the numbers that we're trying to deal with. The project, as I said, might need as many as 30,000 participants to get to the point where you could say something really important. And what we're trying to understand is the genetic risk. And as you were just hearing with the SNPs that you heard in this talk just before this, a single SNP or an area of genetic mutation can really focus in some of your interest and understanding of the illness. So it can do a lot of different things to inform on the pathogenesis. But it can also be the source of diagnostic markers. I mean, it's got some real potential to have other applications. So what is unique about this? And it is a unique study. Why? Because this is a student-patient partnership. It's never happened before. Patients helping design and implement a study in partnership with some really fantastic medical students with the advice and mentoring of the faculty. It's a kind of a different approach. We didn't dump this project on them with our designs. They designed it and got it rolling. And the big questions are, why does one person recover from a common illness and another person stay ill forever? What is the genetic risk that put a person in this position? And is there a genetic signature that would give us clues to predict therapies, subgrouping strategies, and so on? So it's a very big challenge. It takes, as I say, thousands of volunteers, because this is the other strange part of this study. And you have to hear the backstory. When we moved to Nova and we asked them if we could do a social media based fundraising effort, they said, sure. But anyone that pushes the PayPal button has to fill out 5 pages of IRS forms to do the tax part right. And I'm like, well, that's going to work. So I struggled with how do I get small donations without, unduly burdening the donors. And so instead we decided in this study, rather than ask for donations to fund the study, we would ask for your data. We're not asking for your money. We're asking for your data. Many, many people have already had, for fun, ancestry genomics done, either 23andMe, one of the famous platforms, Ancestry.com, famous platform, but they all use the basic same Illumina SNP platform that you would have put into place if you were designing a study in your laboratory. So you're using the basic method that we would have used, or close to it anyway, close enough, and you already own your data sets. So we were asking, could we design a study that was all virtual, so you didn't have to come to a clinic, that you could sign an informed consent online, which in our university was a crazy idea that we had to get past, but we got past that, that you would go onto a web-based platform and fill out the kind of information about your disease that informs the scientist using validated instruments, the ones we use in all of our other studies that look at the domains of illness and severity of illness, and also risk. We ask things like chemical exposures and things like that. So it goes a little beyond the how sick are you and how does that illness look. But it also asks the question what you think your risk might have been and other kind of questions that get at that. And for us, the million-dollar question, can we contact you again someday for more information and additional studies? So in essence, this is acting as a registry of patients that are interested in doing research, period, as well as our avenue to get into this gene space. So we are hoping a study like this will lead to big answers. I think it could if we get the recruitment to the point where it's really meaningful. At genetic risk and so on. I was just going to spend a moment because I know there's people in the room that aren't gene gurus, and I apologize to those that you are because I'm dumbing this down for a moment. But sometimes when we talk about genetic risk, people really get confused about genes, genetic risk, what's a SNP, what's a gene activation study, what are we talking about? metabolomics and proteomes and wonder what's genes. So I'm just going to take one moment to do the simple thing. What is a SNP? A SNP, sorry, but I know most of you guys know this stuff, but I got to do it anyway. Basically, a SNP is a single mutation in a gene. So we all have thousands and thousands of SNPs. It's what makes us individual and unique. If I didn't have a SNP variation with any of you, we would all look exactly like this, have the same health risks, and so on. So a SNP is a variation from 99% of the rest of the world. And they occur throughout your DNA. You have about 10 million SNPs in your genome. It's a lot of SNPs. And they don't always mean a darn thing. It depends where they occur. So it's where they are located in the gene as to whether or not they actually affect the gene function. So we can toss a lot of the SNPs in the platform out, and this has cost us a lot of time, and it's mostly Lubav's time, thank you, Lubav, who's been digging through all these platforms trying to figure out which SNPs would actually confer any kind of health risk by their location near and on the gene. So that's been a big chunk of the work to date. But we can use them. They have, most SNPs don't affect your health at all. They do make your hair curly or eyes green or whatever, but they don't necessarily do anything to your health, but some do confer some risk. And basically that's the point of this study. So what's our solution? We need 30,000 people. We have a really expensive study that's beyond the reasonable budgetary restrictions of any grant. And so we said, let's go global. Let's find as much data as we can. The other thing about genetic studies, the more global they are, the better they are. Because if you did everybody of the same cultural background, while there's something to learn there, it doesn't tell you enough about this disease as it's across many different types of ethnicities and so on. So the broader the better, the bigger the better. This is one of those studies where you don't tighten it up too much. And then use these questionnaires to tighten it up, just to trying to find the actual patients that are truly ME/CFS patients in that. We have a way to do that because we can link it to people that are very well described patients by expert clinics, and then look at their questionnaire results and compare their space to the world that answers, and so we don't slop it up too much with other diseases. So it's the first of its kind, we think. It's global in its recruitment. And what is truly unique is this idea of using crowdsourcing to develop the database. I'm 62 years old. I can tell you crowdsourcing is a unique idea to me, but I can also say that these young medical students, this is the world they live in. They're like, oh, sure, we can roll this out. We do this, we do this, we do this. And I go, yay, let's do that. So you're in charge, you're driving, pretty cool. I don't even tweet, though my president seems to be quite expert at that. So Jen is very good at it as well. She's the tweeter, the tweet expert in our midst. Anyway, so what do we expect? We expect at the end of the day, if we do this well, that we could have diagnostic tests, but I think even more importantly, subgrouping strategies that would allow us to affect tailored treatments. And that is the home run, yay, raise the flag, sing our national anthems all together in discourse, and we will all be very happy. So where are we? So we have these big questions. It's unique. We have these two students that sort of put it together in a summer project using the small stipends they got over the summer from patient advocate created fellowships to try to pull people into our field. One of the issues many people worry about is where's the next generation of investigators going to come from and where are the new doctors going to grow up from? And I'm saying, hey, we have medical students who come spend the summer with us. And thanks to, again, advocacy funding for this Blue Ribbon Fellowship, we're drawn to do this task and pull together an amazing program. I already talked about barriers. The barriers to this kind of science is money, 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 the number of subjects, those are the two big ones. Money and subjects, money and subjects. And then because we need this broad geographic distribution, a design that really pulls everybody in. And then eventually, not initially, tapping into family members so that we get a better sense of the genome. Brainstorming was a big piece of this and continues to be a big piece of this, partnered with the global patient community, brainstorming ways to make this successful. Data, not dollars, how to go viral, using less expensive, publicly accessible genetic studies, such as the 23andMe and Ancestry.com data sets as our data sets, and then engaging students, our next generation of physicians and researchers, to actually power this program and bring them not only the data to us, but bring them to our field. It's a very exciting one. It's a big challenge, and the study group, as I say, has been partnering with advocacy communities to pull this off. So, in bold there, we are asking the patient and advocacy community to partner even more aggressively with this study. We're really open to ideas and better ways to recruit to make this a full success. And so the next slide is where we are, I think, stage of the study. This is important. So a year ago, last summer, we got this thing. The kids spent the summer with us. They did this amazing, amazing thing. They created this study. They created the web-based platform it was on. They made it all on REDCap, so it was very accessible. They got it through the IRB in their 6-week elective, which is insane. And that's never happened to me. I never get anything done in 6 weeks. And they beta tested it. They actually made sure it worked, which is really cool. Then Kelly Hilton took the year off. She received a second fellowship from the university to work with us as a research fellow. So she has spent this entire year getting this thing launched. She has already seen 600 people sign up for this study in its first 9 months, which is really an amazing achievement. More than half of them have already downloaded their data, as well as their genomic data, as well as their clinical data. So we already have preliminary data to start making us more excited about this kind of thing. It really gets us going. We're compiling that data. And the end game, if we get sufficient data, is at the point we can prove that we could say something truly meaningful, then we go with a grant to do additional analytic work that is more costly than this study that currently has no dollars. It's an incredibly well and successful study. I'm so excited about doing a study on no dollars that actually worked. Not to say that our time isn't worth something, but hey, we have no external funding for this, which is really cool. So the summer project was completed, it was launched. In the first 9 months, we already have some global distribution across Europe and Australia, New Zealand. And we have IRB approval to recontact people. So what's our initial data look like? This is my only slide on data. Sorry, all you scientists waiting for the data. There's only 300 so far. So when you look at 300, you can't do the kind of analysis you really want to do with this, which is to let the data speak and have its patterns appear through computational strategies. But rather, you have to be hypothesis-driven and look down specific pathways or specific lines. But with 300 patients, there is healthy control data that's publicly accessible on, is it 90,000 or so, Lubov? It's a huge number that you compare to. And this is the basic space that's coming up so far. And you'll like this because the calcium channel blocker thing is actually in there. The sugar and energy pathways totally goes with a lot of science that you hear right now going on. But in fact, the lectures we heard these last 2 days from the Norwegians really pointed right at these spaces. The calcium channel signaling, did we just hear that? That was really cool. Yay, we're picking that up too. A little validation, go validation. Immune regulation, no surprise to our group that there'd be immune regulatory SNPs. But of course, these are the places we looked because we thought there might be something there based on the literature. So what's going to come out as surprises can't be found until you have the great big numbers and let the numbers drive the analysis. So to say really profound things, you need big numbers. I would think 10,000 would be a really decent starting spot, and that we would hope to get all the way up to 30,000. So to be successful, we need the help of the world. It has to go viral. It simply has to. It has to have so many hits that it's being passed around, and all you social media people have to make that happen for us. Please, please, please. Link it to your Facebook pages, your Twitters and your Snapchats and whatever else there is out there. Do that. Sorry. Still stupid that way. But we have a dedicated website and dedicated email. The way people get into this study is they go to the website, they hit the email, and they send an email. And then we send them back their personal link, which creates a de-identified space. That means your names aren't anywhere, and your addresses and your social security numbers. And it makes it a data set that can be used by more than our group. Okay? So speaking of partners, we're talking about this. I tried to put your slide-ins here, but it was too late. But there's a registry effort by the Solve CFS group that is already up and running and recruiting. That would be a very reasonable partnership. There you are. I'd appreciate if people go to the Solve CFS and look at the registry study there. And also, go onto our site. If anyone in their countries has registry efforts going on for research, that would be just phenomenal to link it onto your sites. But I would like us to see a advocacy organization, patient organization-driven effort, not just for this study. Because if you talk to anyone who does research in this field, what are the barriers? Subject access and money. Subject access and money. Always, 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 always. What is the first year's delay that wastes the first couple $100,000 of money you do get? Trying to find the subjects so you can get them into the study. So the more we can engage the advocacy community, the patient community into solving that problem, often really a big problem for us because of privacy regulations on the academic end that makes it very difficult to reach out and really do this effectively. So we need the patient end to do the reach because you don't have quite the same level of restriction that we have. So you might consider those kind of things. So I'm asking that you partner with us. Add us to your online spaces. When we go for funding, we will be asking for money to subsidize the kits because about half of our subjects can't afford the kits. And when we write our grant, we will obviously have a big, massive data management piece. The Open Medicine group have volunteered to partner with us. We're hoping to use some of their amazing superpowers. And of course, we'll work with in a very collaborative way, in a very broad way. Other things that could help in the questionnaires, if anyone wants to make the Finnish questionnaire or the Norwegian questionnaire with us, please feel free. I would like to do some translation services. There's some trickiness to that, but you just write us and we'll talk about how to get that done and then validate the result. And we welcome your feedback. That's the study. That's the site. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
The team. That's the team.
Hi, hi Nancy. This is a really great example of patient researcher collaboration, and so I'm so excited about it, and it's amazing that you've already gotten sort of 600 kits. I don't know if we have talked about this yet, but I'd love to help you kind of reach more people and also sort of brainstorm how to get some of those kits subsidized.
That'd be great.
I had two questions. I think one, if we could get a large number of kits funded, one thing is sort of going out to people, kind of trying to crowdsource online, but then the other way to do it is to actually go to kind of pools of places where we know there are patients, and then and try to then give them the offer of participating in the study. And I'm wondering if you've have one thought of places like here where you have the NHS and there's kind of possibilities to collaborate and find patients perhaps more readily than we can in the US because of the way the health system is set up. So I'm wondering about that. And then second, is there any benefit in this early stages when you have sort of small numbers of trying to oversample in families where there is a very kind of strong prevalence of the disease, where you have 3 generations, or not just 2, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people who are affected?
Oh, no, that's absolutely our plan. We'd very much like to get to the families that have this illness or similar illnesses within the family cluster. We're going to set up a sort of a separate little spin-off study for that, but it's definitely in the plan. The also thing I didn't mention is that Gulf War illness, one of our research interests, is included in this. We haven't had very many takers in that field. I don't think it's easy to reach the veteran population. But we'd be very keen to look at the differences between similar illnesses that aren't exactly the same, because there's a lot of commonality to how the illness expresses. You can learn a lot in that space.
And we also have volunteer translators in about 12 languages, so we should talk about that.
That's great. I'm putting you on the committee. Poor Jen, she just got invited.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that very interesting talk, Dr. Klimas. So I was just wondering, with this social media approach, though, the only thing I see is, would there be any way to actually validate the diagnosis of patients? Because in the UK over here, we've kind of considered some techniques in order to draw more people in, via digital platforms, but it's very hard to actually validate the diagnosis and which criteria. So,
Yes, it's a big topic. I know Beth and I have talked about this too. The CDC has a similar, and this common data elements effort's in partly born to try to have some sense of that. What I'm hoping, though of course you don't know it until you do the study to prove it, is by having a number of subjects that have been diagnosed and confirmed in expert spaces, like our clinic or other expert clinics. I'm not going to talk them all through, but anyway, one of the questions in the survey is basically, who made your diagnosis? So we'd be able to take that data set, pull it out, and look at what's common across all of those replies in the survey instrument, and then go into the much larger data set and pull out that tighter group to do analysis. That's one reasonable research design. The other way is to randomly bring in people that fit all that into a space, but that's, after you write a grant and have some money. On $0, this is what we can do. With dollars, we can do it better.
I'm Carol Head from the Solve MECFS initiative in Los Angeles, and Nancy, I do this with Nancy's permission, that our organization has, thanks to a grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, has developed a very sophisticated online platform working with Genetic Alliance that is tried and true, has been used in hundreds of other diseases, that really performs this exact function. And it allows for many questionnaires for patients. It allows patients or people with MECFS to make their own decisions about how broadly their data can be shared or not shared, and also is very easily accessible with data for researchers anywhere in the world who want to access this data. So I do invite you to go to solvecfs.org if you're at all interested in participating. And we're a research organization, but also do advocacy work, and so hope to really work with Nancy to get that populated very quickly. Thanks.
Thank you.